All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug, as always. I'm with the Awakened by Yahuwah Fellowship in Yahuwah Almighty Yahushua Messiah, and today we are going to be doing a continuation of the Haftarah readings. And so, just bear with me for a second. I want to get to the right book here. So we are in Genesis, and we are in 8. Okay, so I'm going to have like a side by side comparison. I'm going to try to just read through it. And once we're done with the chapter, we can look at any differences that there might be here. So. Okay, so it says, and Alua remembered Noah and all of the beasts of the cattle, all the fowls and the reptiles which creep. And I really don't like the word reptiles here. We talked about this before. If you look in the Greek, it's supposed to say creeping things, which creep all with him in the ark. Alua brought a wind over the earth and assuaged with water. The fountains of the abyss were shut up, and the cataracts cataracts of heaven. Oh my goodness, that's such a weird. No, I gotta change a different Septuagint here. It should not say that. Okay. Yeah. I think Charles Thompson, he tried too much to make it modernized, and that's what happens a lot when you try to modernize it. You'll have weird words like that. Go ahead, brother.
Just wanted to say I thought this was interesting. So I actually started a new reading plan, going through Genesis, Psalms, Proverbs, and Matthew right now. And this is actually where I'm at currently. I just finished Genesis 7.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah, I wonder if all the versions here say abyss in verse 2. Think it's either 2 or 1 where it talks about the waters under the waters. So the waters of the basically the pit. Basically, this would be talking about the waters of Sheol, the waters of the underworld were shut down. So I think, yeah, the Samaritan, I don't even think mentions fountains. It mentions fountains, but not of the abyss. That's interesting. Oh wow, oh okay, I didn't even realize that it was the Targum that was saying that. Interesting. That's interesting. Okay, so that's interesting that that's the only version that has abyss there. I might have to make a note of that.
Yeah, I don't have anything like that.
The Unkelos Targum says the water springs of the abyss were shut. So that's interesting. And there's like I forgot to mention recently too, there's even debate among um the Jewish people today whether the Unkelos was legitimately a Aramaic or originated in Greek. Some people that try to discount it will say that they'll say that it was translated from an earlier Greek text, so they don't want it to be considered a Jewish text. Um, which I don't mind if it is. That just means it would have been translated from a Septuagint version, which is fine by me. So, but yeah, there's a lot of Jewish people today try to discount the Onkelos by saying that. So, but I find it interesting that it has abyss there in verse 2. So that's interesting. Anyway, moving on. Or no, verse 1. Sorry, verse 1. 8 verse 1 is where the abyss was there. Go ahead, brother.
I would say that the young Kalos isn't it's not making anything up, and it actually still agrees with the Septuagint, even though the Septuagint doesn't say it in that verse. If you go back to chapter 7, um, verse 11, in the 600th year of the life of Nut, in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, on this day, all the fountains of the abyss were broken up, and the floodgates of heaven were opened. So it's just concluding that the fountains of the abyss have closed or shut.
Yes. Hmm. Cool. Yeah, I just want to share this just so people know I'm not making this stuff up. Debate over who wrote on Kalos. So this is like, Yeah, so this is like a little overview here, very short overview. It says there's debate on who would have wrote the Targum Onkelos centers on its traditional attribution to the second century Roman convert named Onkelos, often linked with Aquilas, and Aquilas is where they get the Greek version assumption, versus modern scholarly dating, which some place its final form in the third, fourth, fifth. Yeah, that's way too late. That's way too late. That's yeah, I would say modern that modern scholarly opinion would not make sense at all, since it majority of the time it goes against the Masoretic, so it would not make sense. Suggesting a gradual development, yada yada yada. Key points of contention include whether Ankelos and Aquila are the same person, the influence of rabbinical figures like R. Eleazar, R. Yehoshua, and the text's precise historical origins, though its status as an authoritative translation of Torah remains undisputed. Interesting. So, regardless, the being an authoritative Targum, it's saying that it's undisputed. It's not disputed as a legitimate Targum. So that's kind of funny. So they hate Greek, but they'll take a text that could have originated in Greek and translated into Aramaic. I just find that funny. Go ahead, brother. I don't know if that's a new hand, old hand. Let's see here. Just copy and paste this to the chat here. So anyone that wants to read this, it's pretty interesting origin to the Unkalos and dispute on who actually wrote it. So there's it's kind of interesting to me though that they would not have problems reading a Targum that could have been originally in Greek before Aramaic, but they don't want to read the Septuagint. That just kind of makes me chuckle a little bit. But anyway, let's see. Rain from heavens was restrained, so the windows of heavens, windows, Shamayim, the Rakia, okay, firmament opening up physically, and you got water coming down. A lot of people like Ken Hovind, they try to work their way around that one. A lot of people that are still on the globe, they try to read around that. And it's like it's literally talking about physical window of heaven opening up, water coming down, straight down. There's no way you can get around that. There's no such thing as space. There's no such thing as, oh, well, it's just talking about water of the atmosphere. No, no, literal water in heaven, windows opening up from the sky, physical hard structure opening up like doors, and then you got water coming down. So that's why I believe flat Earth is the only legitimate biblical understanding of the world we live in. There's the globe does not explain any of Scripture when Scripture talks about how the Earth looks, how the Earth, how the firmament works. You know, that's basically what I'm trying to say there. Verse 2, it clearly shows that flat Earth is biblical. The waters turned from on the earth, going and returning, and the waters diminished from the end of 150 days. So basically, the flood was for 150 days. So that would be, let's see, 3, 16, 90, 120.
Oh, 5.
5 months. Yeah, I was just counting on my hand there. Yeah. So there, 5 months the flood was. Interesting. I think we're at verse 4 here. The ark rests on Ararat. And the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day. Yeah, this is where it gets weird.
Chapter in them.
8 verse 4.
Oh, 8. I thought we were in 9.
Oh, no, we're in 8.
Okay.
Go ahead, brother. Yeah, 8 verse 4. So where it talks about
Interestingly, the Onkelos says that it rested on the mountains of Cardu.
interesting. Now, I would like to look up what they would have thought in ancient times where that is. I wonder if Cardu. What's interesting is that the Septuagint doesn't even mention where it rested on in this verse. That's the funny thing. So you got Samaritan Pentateuch or Samaritan Torah saying Ararat, and then you have Onkelos saying Cardu, and then the version of the LXX we have today doesn't even have that sentence. It just says it decreased until the 10th month. So you have a
That's
difference in the
because
number of months.
it's in the previous verse. The verses are
Ah,
off.
okay. Okay, so the only real difference then, I guess, with this Septuagint here is the number of the month, which again, you'll see a lot of that. Why they would want to change the 10 to 17 makes no sense. Um, it's very weird. Um, yeah. So, oh, go ahead, brother.
At least according to when I searched it in Brave browser, it says the mountains of Kardu are located in southeastern Turkey, specifically in Sirnak province within the southeastern Anatolia region. This area is near the headwaters of the Tigris River and close to the modern borders of Syria and Iraq.
Mm.
Interestingly, so in order for them to make it that specific, it would have to mean that the mountains of Kurdu are still known to this day. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's probably their oral tradition, I would assume. The Targums, just for anyone that doesn't know, sometimes they'll have even the on Kalos, even though it doesn't have like the crazy Talmudic commentary that the pseudo Jonathan and the other ones have. The Onkelos sometimes will give you added details that in their oral tradition they would have believed. So basically, they would have believed, like you're saying, that Ararat is there. So they're basically they're what is it called? Paraphrasing. They're like paraphrasing, giving their interpretive version of the text. So they're, you'll see that a lot in the Targums. Like for example, with the mezuzah and stuff like that, like how the Masoretic just says you put the mezuzah over your doorpost, very, very like generic. The one of the targums will tell you you're supposed to write it on a scroll, supposed to write it on parchment and affix it to your doorpost. So it like the targums were basically made for the community that came back from Babylon
Mhm.
orally first, orally. When it supposedly they go way back orally as early as rough 400-ish 500-ish BC orally were being passed down as a way to basically translate it orally. A professional translator would be in the synagogue, paraphrasing what's being read out loud from the scroll. They'd be like, "This is how you apply it," yada yada. So it's kind of like a preacher version of the Torah, like how we see preachers today try to explain the meaning of the verse. So it would almost be an interpretive version of the scriptures. Go ahead, brother. I don't know if that's a new hand, old hand.
Oh no, that's an old hand.
Yeah, so just for the viewers that are very novice to the Targums, it's an interpretive Torah. It so that's why they're giving historical things and they're giving like probably yeah, Ararat was probably, not called Ararat at that point. Who knows? Like they're because you even have um certain times in the Septuagint where they give a modern term for something geographical. And so that could be why too. They may be new as Cardew at that point. But that is interesting. What's interesting in the next verse is you see a second witness to the Septuagint here. So verse 5. Okay, my internet's not it's a little unstable. Okay, let me fix that. I haven't even been using my the in-town suites here is just such a good internet. I've not really needed to use the hotspot lately. Okay, where the heck? Why is my that's strange. Let me try refreshing this because it should give more options. It's not even showing my hotspot as an option. That's weird. It's really weird because it should say turbo something. All right, whatever. I'll have to worry about that later. So let's see here. And in the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the heads of the fountains were seen. So we have 10th month of the first month where the tops of the mountains seen. Okay, so now the problem is 10th month, first day of the month. Samaritan Torah is saying that it was the 10th of the month on the first month. So you have a disagreement between the Samaritan and LXX there. But what's interesting is on Kalos here, it says in the 10th of the first month. So the Kalos is agreeing with the Septuagint. I think this is why they want to discount it as a real Targum, because the Jewish people would not like the fact that the Targum on Kalos still has older readings of the Torah that match the Septuagint sometimes. So they would not like that. So that's probably why the whole debate I was talking about before, Aquila versus, the other guy who would have wrote it. So Noah sends a fourth raven, then a dove. And it was the end of 40 days. Noah opened the windows of the ark which he had made. And he sent forth a raven and went forth and returned not until the water was dried off. Whoops. I didn't mean to do that. Okay. Okay, so let me see here. He sent forth till it was dried off from the earth, and he sent a dove and after to see if the water had ceased from the ground. See, this is what I was talking about the other day, guys. Earth, ground, same thing. That's all eretz means. It means ground. It doesn't mean a planet. It just means it means the ground. So, anyway, soon from the surface of the earth. Okay, but the dove found no resting place. Now, obviously, we know who this is.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny is those that would say Yahusha's not the father. Why is he being represented by a dove then? Because, right? Just saying. So, that to me is kind of interesting because you even see right in the book of Enoch. Please help me, brother Dennis, if you know the chapter I'm thinking of here, where it says wisdom found no place among the sons of men, right? So you have the person wisdom in the book of Enoch being compared to Yahusha. Yahusha is categorized as wisdom in Proverbs chapter 8 of the canon. Then you have the spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, looks like a dove when it descends to Yahusha. So that was kind of my point about a little minor oneness point is if he's not the father, why are him and the father both characterized by a dove? Even spiritually, it's showing that they're one and the same. No. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot, and she returned unto him into the ark for the waters in the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth his, whoops, I went down too far here, to his hand and took her and pulled her in unto him into the ark. And he stayed another 7 days and again sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came into him in the evening. Interesting. And lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from the earth. And this still represents Yahusha here, even with the olive leaf, right? Like what is right, what is that verse, Mom, in the New Testament? He's the tree, we're the branches, or he's the root, we're
Yeah,
the
15, John 15.
So the only two, Israel or Yahusha. Like we are the branches of the olive tree. He is the olive tree. A lot of people misunderstand that and they say that Israel's the olive tree in Romans 11, but it's actually saying he is the root. Israel's not the root. He is the root. So yeah. But anyway, in him so he brought it into him in the evening, and her mouth was full with olive leaf plucked off. And Noah Noah knew from that the waters were off from the earth. So I'm guessing maybe Yahuwah, it's not documented here, but maybe he warned him like, okay, I'm going to send you a sign. He might have not told him everything, but he'd be like, I'm going to send you a sign, Noah, when you're on the ark to know that the flood would stop. And he stayed yet another 7 days, which sent forth the ark, which returned not again unto him anymore. Came to pass in the 600th in first year of Noah's life, oh my bad, it's 600 first year in the first month, first day of the month. The waters were dried up from all. No. All right, so I think I'm at what was it, verse 14? I kind of screwed up here in my stupid mouse. Sometimes it like releases the dragging. Okay. And then it will like scroll up by mistake. No, not. Okay, so yeah, I think it was at 14.
Mhm.
In the second month, in the 27th day of the month was the herb dried. This is what I'm talking about again. So, like, depending on your version, it's either going to say 27 or 17. So, what's interesting is I gotta document this here. Okay, this is interesting. All right, so 27th, 27th. So right here, I'm just gonna put a little note in the chat here. Was that verse 17?
Mhm. Verse 14.
Yeah. Oh, 14, sorry. LXX and SPE, Samaritan Pentateuch in English, both say 17. Or no, my bad. They both say 27. So basically, this shows that again that a lot of these versions in certain verses will agree with the Septuagint over the Masoretic. And it shows that the Septuagint has the older reading. Because most people today will put the Samaritan Torah at about 100 BC, around the same time as the Dead Sea Scrolls, roughly. So this is showing that the Masoretic is differing not just from the Septuagint here, but from the Samaritan Pentateuch. And so that's showing here that obviously that was changed for some reason. Why they would want to change it to 17 instead of 27, don't know. Um, but anyway, so verse 15, Elua spoken to Noah saying, and this is interesting to me. This is interesting to me. The Septuagint is showing that this would be Yahusha himself speaking to Noah. Yahuwah Elua spoke to Noah saying, or Yahuwah Elohim spoke to Noah saying. So this is, you'll see this, like, I know a lot of you guys have followed us for a while. You know my belief about who the compound name Yahuwah Elohim is referring to, but some may not. I believe this is Yahusha before he took on flesh. Whenever it says, when it has Yahuwah and then it has Elohim together in one name, that's Yahusha. That's the word of Yahuwah right there. So I find that interesting. And I'll share with you guys after we're done today. I'll put a link to our previous study on this topic so you guys can get some proof of why I believe that. Mainly from the Targums, believe it or not. A lot of the times um, will have they will paraphrase Yahuwah Elohim as Memra Yahuwah or the word of Yahuwah. So anyway, so Debar Yahuwah, LXX, and so okay. All right. So verse 16, go forth out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you, and every living thing that is with you of all flesh, fowl, and cattle, every creeping thing that is upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. That's kind of interesting, the word breed there. You don't really see that from modern versions, or no, I should say vice versa, from not modern versions, from older versions, because supposedly this version, this translation of the Samaritan Pentateuch is supposed to be based on the King James English. So it's a little weird to see breed there. You really don't see that in older versions. So anyways, talking about multiplying upon the earth, different creatures multiplying upon the earth, creeping things, whether it's insects, what have it. Noah went forth, no, his sons, his sons' wives with him, every beast of every beast, every fowl, every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth and kinds went forth out of the ark, which Elua accepts and promises to curse the earth no more. And Noah built an altar unto Yahuwah and took every clean beast, every clean fowl, offer burnt offerings on the altar, And Yahuwah smelled a sweet savor, and Yahuwah said in his heart, I will not again, moreover, curse the ground anymore for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart, evil from his youth. So a lot of people like don't realize that. This is what I always talk about, guys, is that our sinful nature, we are born with an inner sinful nature with our flesh. This is something we're born with. It's even as early as our youth, meaning like a child. Okay. So, yes, a child is innocent to a certain extent, but once a child gets to a certain age, they are now accountable for the sinful flesh they're born in. So, he even says, as a youth, even as a youth, they have an evil imagination of their heart. I will not curse the ground because man of the imaginations of man's heart is evil from his youth, neither will I smite. I hate it when it does that. I don't know why this stupid mouse does that. Okay, so I will no longer smite any more every living thing as I have done. Now, when he's saying every living thing, he doesn't mean like everything that was on the earth at the flood. Obviously, he doesn't, because did he smite Noah and his family? No. So obviously, he's not talking about literally every living thing. Like there's a point where we got to kind of be careful in the English when we see everything or every little thing, every creature, like that verse says, to not take that to extreme literal, because obviously Noah and his family was saved. Obviously, all the animals that Yahuwah could save were saved. So obviously it's not every literal creature was destroyed in the flood. So that's not what that verse is saying. So it's the same thing when you see what was it, chapter 6, Mom, where it talks about I will destroy the earth. Did he literally destroy the earth? No. He sent a flood to wipe out the corrupted parts of his creation, to wipe out certain things. Some of the cities and whatever countries would have been there, yeah, that would have been wiped out, buildings would have been wiped out, or whatever civilization, but the earth of itself was not wiped out. So we got to be careful not to read things into extreme literal. Go ahead, brother.
I think in a way, depending on how you interpret it, you could say that it was, uh, because when he created the earth, right, he brought the earth from out of the waters. Come on, Mana. Um, he brought the earth from out of the waters, and if like you go, hey, yo, too, if you go into the ocean, right, it's the same earth that's in the waters, but it's not really considered the earth because it's in the waters. And so when the earth flooded, or when the waters flooded the earth, you really couldn't call it earth anymore because it went back into the waters like before it was created, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see it that way. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just warning people against taking verses like that to extreme literal, because you'll start create like weird type of belief systems. Like this is where the gap theorists get their so-called proof. Say, oh well, he wiped the earth out. Even so, to them, I would even ask them then, do are we on a fourth Earth? Is there going to be a fourth Earth in Revelations 21? Because you're saying that there was a so-called destruction of the Earth, so-called pre-Adamite nonsense, and now you're interpreting the verses that talk about Noah's flood as the Earth was destroyed. So my question is then, which Earth are we on at this point? If you're going to preach that, go ahead, brother.
I would say Earth Planet 2.0.
And I'll show you guys the verse that I'm being facetious about right now in Peter. Okay, so they take this and they try to say that this was the pre-Adamite world. I think it's Second Peter 3, and maybe let me see it, or Second Peter 1 talks about the world that was in the water. In the water. Let me see if I can find the I think it's First Peter. I think. Yeah. So First Peter 3:20. So this is what the gap theorists will say. These are the pre-Adamite people. They'll try to use this verse and twist it. They'll say, "Who were one time disobedient," talking about the generation of Noah and Jared and all that. Okay, when once the long suffering of Elua waited in the days of Noah, and this kind of hints at the 120 years is not about man's days, literally. This even hints at it because it's saying Yahuwah was patient, meaning he waited a long time to actually deliver the flood. So, meaning there
Mhm.
was amount of years they were given by Noah to repent. Long suffering of Elua waited in the days of Noah while the ark was being prepared. So, but the amount of time it took him to actually build the ark was also of allotment of time for people to repent, wherein a few, that is 8 souls, were saved by water. So they'll use this verse. I think it's either this verse or like a couple of verses prior, and they'll talk about how it says the world that was in water, out of the water, which again, then you have to say there was a flood before the flood of Noah. Scripture doesn't say that. So there, to me, like I know there's a whole separate like topic, but I'm just saying this is usually where they get the whole gap theory nonsense. So to them, we're on the second Earth already. To them, we're all, the old Earth was literally destroyed. And that's why I'm saying extreme literals can be dangerous. Like you got to take into context what it's talking about. Because really, when you look at the whole chapter, I think in Genesis 6, Yahuwah's not talking about destroying the earth as destroying a planet. He's talking about destroying what's on the earth. He's talking about bringing judgment. He's talking about destroying, the creatures that corrupted themselves from the earth in context. So that, yes, he destroys some of the arets, some of the ground, some of the buildings that would have been some of civilization, yes. And it, like brother said, it got sunk. So whatever was left of the arets would have been considered destroyed in that sense. But like people like are thinking about it in like space aspect, like they're that like Earth as a planet was like completely destroyed, and that he would have had to create a whole new Earth, and that's we don't see that in Scripture. So that's what I mean by you got to be careful with extreme literals. Um, but anyway, so let me see if I can just show you the verse I'm talking about here. So he talks about I think it starts at verse 19 of First Peter 3. By whom also he went, preached to the spirits in prison, which again, I believe possibly this could have been Noah's generation in Sheol when Yahusha died,
Mhm.
right before, like between the period of the 3 days. Obviously, he would have had enough time to do this. Between the 3 days of being in the grave and ascending, he wasn't just resting. Like this
Mhm.
is this is the spirit of Messiah in Sheol preaching
Mhm.
to the wicked of Noah's generation, so that they don't have an excuse. They don't have an excuse. They've been preached to, and so they basically, I believe that's what it is. I know some other people think it's spiritual warfare. I know there's some people that want to say he was, declaring war on the Watchers and all that. That's fine, but it's talking about prison. The word prison there, I think, is Sheol, if I'm not mistaken. Am I wrong? It's Sheol, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe something close to Sheol. So it should be. See here. What is this pronounced? Fulake, guarding or concretely guarded, figurative place. The place, condition, time is a division of day or night. All right. So it's not that specific. But when I look at the text of itself, it's talking about that generation of Noah. Okay, it's not talking about the fallen angels. So anyway, but anyway, the point is that they are without excuse. If that's what happened down there, and he's preaching to that wicked generation that died in the flood, preaching to their spirits, then that's it. That's it. That's their judgment. They're he's basically preaching to them down there. So anyway, so it talks about which figure now also saves us about Yahusha he is the true Son of Man, where Noah was like a foreshadowing of him. That's why it says, which figure now also saves us, immersion, not a putting away of the filth of the flesh, but the answer of a good conscience toward Elohim through the resurrection of Yahushua Messiah, who having gone up to heaven is sitting at the right hand of Elohim. We know all that. Okay. So, but this chapter details with the whole um with the flood narrative, and I'm trying to remember what exact verse in here it talks about the I might be in the wrong chapter where it talks about the world that was in the water. Um, but they love to use this verse, the world that was in water, out of water. It's a word phrase, weird phrasing in it where they try to use um let's see here. Maybe it's Second Peter. Yeah. Okay. Second Peter 3, 5-7. Yeah, I was in the wrong book. Okay. But it's kind of related to the verse we just went through. So it says, by these waters also the world of that time was deluged and destroyed. Wow, that's interesting. NIV uses deluge?
Mhm.
That's interesting because there's supposed to be a modern version.
Mhm.
Deluge is like old Greek. That's you'll see deluge in like the Targums. So that's very
I
uncharacteristic.
think it's a pretty common word that's still used, though. I think.
The first time I heard it was on Frasier.
Yeah, yeah. Deluge.
That's not a little sprinkle, that's a deluge. So, but it's like that's usually like a very old British term, like you
Mhm.
don't really see people today using. I wonder which NIV that is that Bible Hub had, if that's the 70s version, because that's very uncharacteristic of the NIV to use uh old Middle English like that, or possible Greek terminology like that. So let me just see here. I want to go to the actual chapter to get context real quick, and we'll finish the chapter here. We're pretty much almost done with chapter 8 already. So it says Second Peter 3, 5-7. For of this they are unwillfully ignorant, and as Kent Hovind would say, that means stupid on purpose. That by the word of Elua the heavens were of old, the earth standing out of the water and in the water. So it's talking about the world of Noah being sunken in water, whereby the world was the world as it then was being overflowed with water perished. So again, it's talking about the world. It's not saying that the Eretz of itself was completely decimated or whatever. Okay. But the heavens and the earth, which now are by the same word, are kept reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of wicked men. So again, does that mean that we're not going to have this present earth in the millennium? No, it means that he is going to destroy the wicked. He's going to destroy the things that are on this earth, not utterly obliterate the earth. And so, again, a lot of this just goes back to the whole false globe and space understanding. And that's why a lot of this gets misunderstood, because we're indoctrinated with the globe, with outer space, and we're trying to fit that in the Bible, which is an Eastern flat Earth book. It's not going to fit. So anyway, sorry about my tangent there, but I just wanted to kind of explain that because you're going to see a lot of imagery like that in this flood narrative. So I think we're at verse 19. Every beast, every fowl, every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth came forth out of the ark. Okay, Noah builded the altar to Yahuwah and took every clean beast, clean fowl, and offered burnt offering. So verse 20 there. Okay, so clearly says there's clean meat, clean animals being given as a righteous offering to Yahuwah. You all right, Mom?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. So it's very clear there's a law of clean and unclean. They were not just eating whatever they wanted. Okay. And Yahuwah smelled a sweet savor, and Yahuwah said in his heart, I will not again anymore curse the ground anymore. So we went through this verse. Okay. So it's talking about man's from his youth has evil imaginations in his heart. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and wheat, summer, winter, day and night shall not cease. And I think we talked about this before. I think I remember, brother, you bring this up because people that have problems with First Enoch will try to assert that this contradicts. It really doesn't. It's just saying that in general, these things will not cease. Not that they're not going to be appearing at the wrong times, not that the times won't be off, but that they won't stop. So, meaning like you'll always have a new moon. You'll always have the sun rising in the morning. You'll always have the moon coming down, at night with the stars. You'll always have that. That will always be there. Not that everything will appear in its appointed time perfectly for forever. That Yahuwah never promised that. So he never promised that, that we wouldn't have to deal with the times and the seasons being a little off in the end times, which we already see. Proof of that this day we see. The seasons are a little off. They're not exactly coming at the exact 100% perfect appointed time. Weather is even off, So, that doesn't contradict. Those are two different separate things. Okay. Anyway, so Genesis 9. Mom, you know what? Because I'll let Sister Marissa go because she volunteered. Sis, would you like to read Genesis 9 for us?
Can you put it up on the screen?
Yeah, sure. Let me give you a version you're familiar with. Where's the ISR here? The heck, stupid taskbar.
The whole chapter?
Yeah, you want to break it with my mom?
No, I can read the whole chapter.
Okay. Am I blind as a bat or something? What's going on here? Okay. All right. Restore name King James should be fine. All right, here we go.
Real quick before moving on, I wanted to say in regards to the seasons not coming in at their appointed times, what I find interesting is up here, I don't know if it's going on elsewhere, but at least up here in Northern California, a lot of the days, honestly, they don't even feel like winter. However, they're constantly spraying the clouds. They're constantly trying to bring in rain and fog, and almost like they're trying to make it so that it is winter, even though a lot of the days it doesn't feel like winter. The only days it feels like it's winter are the days where like the fake rain and the fake clouds and everything ends up coming in. Other than that, it feels like it's like today, it almost feels like it's summer. Even though I can look far off in the distance, I see snow on the mountains. Here where I'm at, though, it feels like it's summer. So it's almost like they're trying to keep, it's like the seasons aren't coming in at their appointed times, but they're trying to hide it.
It's very cold where I'm at right now. It's like very windy, very cold. And I know that the mountain peaks that had a snow, the snow is already melting. I mean, I can see snow.
It's 70 here right now.
Mountain peak from my apartment. That's the San Bernardino Mountains, believe it or not. But I can see them from where I live because I'm on the 4th floor. Snow is literally, the last time I checked, the snow was covering a good portion of the mountain. I looked outside this morning. I noticed that a lot of it has already melted. It's weird. And so I'm ready to read.
Yes.
Okay, let's see here. Let me just try to make it a little bit bigger for you so it's a little easier. I know it's hard sometimes reading. There we go.
Okay. Yahuwah blesses Noah and his sons and grants them flesh for food. And Elohim blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. Blood and murder are forbidden, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it. And at the hand of man, at the hand of every man's brother, will I require the life of man. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of Elohim made he man. And you be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply therein. Yahuwah's covenant, of which the rainbow was constituted a pledge. And Elohim spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And I, behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark, to every beast of the earth, and I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And Elohim said, This is a token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between Elohim and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. And Elohim said unto Noah, This is a token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. Noah's family replenished the world. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. Noah plants a vineyard. And Noah began to be husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. Is drunken and mocked by his son. And he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went down and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his younger son had done unto him. Curses Canaan. And he said, Cursed be Canaan. Where'd he go? Go up more. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. Blesses Shem. Go down. And he said, Blessed be Yahuwah, Elohim of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Prayers for Japheth, and dies. Elohim shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And Noah lived after the 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. So we've always heard that what happened with the nakedness of Noah was that his son slept with his concubine.
Mm-hmm.
But here it says that his sons went in his tent and covered him because he was naked. So which is it?
Um, I would say it was, well, the uncovering of the nakedness, the thing is, in scripture, we're given like one sole definition of that. And almost everywhere else, when you go into Leviticus, especially, it's very clear what it means. So I would say it's more of a cultural thing. Why we don't understand that and why we think that he was just saying, ha ha, my dad's drunk,
Mm-hmm.
is because we're Western culture people and we're not Eastern culture, and we don't understand that Yahuwah defined removing someone's nakedness as either you're sleeping with their wife or you're sleeping with them.
Okay,
There's
so
no,
it
yeah,
says that that's not what it said on here though.
but that, well, it doesn't need to, sis, if the same guy is writing Leviticus, the same guy is writing Genesis and Leviticus, he's not going to contradict the universal definition in their culture. The point is that if you look in Leviticus, there's a whole chapter about sexual sin every single time. It says you are not to remove your dad's nakedness by sleeping with his wife. You're not to, it
Yeah.
goes, you
Yeah.
got to match scripture with scripture. You can't
Yeah.
ever take one instance and make a
Yeah.
definition on it. Like you can't, because it doesn't say what removing his nakedness was in this. We are
That,
inferring.
Mm.
well,
That's called.
it does say that the brothers went in and covered his dad's nakedness. So that doesn't mean that they all had sex with the concubine. It just means that they went in the room. Obviously, Noah was naked, and they had to cover him because they didn't want to see his nakedness. So that's where, for me, the confusion lies, because I understand what you're saying about Leviticus, meaning you don't uncover your father's nakedness, meaning don't sleep with his wife or his concubine. But that's not what it says here. Here it says that the brothers had something that they walked backwards and they covered their dad's nakedness and they didn't see him naked. So that's where I'm confused, because first of
Mhm.
all, the nakedness means don't sleep with your dad's wife, but that's not what it says here. Here it says that they walked in the room and covered him so that they didn't see his nakedness.
May I
So,
say
but
something?
yep, go ahead.
So my if I'm uncovering my dad's nakedness, the implication is sexual, whether I'm looking at her, him, and thinking about it in my mind. If I've already done it in my mind, then I've already done it physically, right? So whether it's physical, whether it's mental, irregardless, it's still the same thing.
Right.
So if they were to go in there
Mm-hmm.
and look, right, they would have been tempted to lust and possibly fall the same way that their brother fell. But instead, they walked backwards and covered his nakedness.
Not looking right.
So there was no sexual sin.
Okay, so I'm confused. Wait a minute. So there was no sexual sin between Canaan, the brother and the concubine? Because it doesn't say.
No, what Brother Husha is trying to say, sis, is whether it was physical or mental, whether he lusted after his mother or just the wife of Noah physically or mentally, it's still sexual, is what he's trying to say. So whether he had to physically lay with her or
Or he just
basically
listed.
uncover his dad's nakedness, take the covers off, and lust after her mentally, psychologically, either way, it's sexual sin, even according to the New Testament. So
Mm-hmm.
either way, the point is that removing your nakedness everywhere else, and Noah can't create a new context. He can't. He doesn't have the right to do that. If Yahuwah is telling you what removing your nakedness is, it has to be that in every instance.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the point. So the point is we're taking our Western
Yeah.
theological
That is the problem.
church
Yeah.
understanding
Yeah.
into the text, whether we realize it or not. And the reason people interpret it as, oh, they're just laughing at him uncovering his covers is because that's what we've been taught in the church.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the Middle Eastern understanding.
Right, exactly.
No Hebrew would have looked at the text there that you're
Mhm.
describing and inferred that in their
Yeah.
culture. No, that is a Christian understanding because that you're trying to take it extreme. Like I said, this is the problem when we take extreme literals to the
Yeah,
text.
yeah.
This is the problem. You can't look at the English of itself
Mhm.
and put an extreme eisegetical, what they call in Bible college, eisegetical, put your own interpretation into the text. You have to look at where other places that phrase is being used. Like basically, basic hermeneutics, even for pastors, they admit this, that when they go to Bible college, they're taught how to interpret scripture with scripture. And what you do is you look at every place that phrase is used and you take the most
Mhm.
common definition of that phrase, the most used definition of that phrase in scripture, which, like I said, if Noah's going to describe it as that in Leviticus, he can't contradict himself
Right.
in Genesis. So if he, well, not Noah, if Moses is writing Genesis, he's not going to contradict and have one place it meaning something
Yeah,
completely
that's
different
right.
when everywhere else it means one thing. So that's what I mean. Like
Okay, but
it,
I'm reading here in the Septuagint, the version of the Septuagint says, and he drank of the wine and was drunk and was naked in his house. So it's saying here that Noah drank the wine, he got drunk, and he was naked in his house.
Mhm.
So explain that to me. What does that mean exactly?
what
Uh,
that he got drunk and he
that
got
he,
naked. It could be multiple things. It could be that he passed out drunk and maybe
yeah,
started to lay with his wife. Who knows? It could be multiple things. It could be what Josh. The point that brother was trying to bring up was that like we're saying, it could either be physical sexual sin being
Mhm.
referenced, or it could even be mental. It could be maybe Ham removed the covers and maybe was like lusting after his mother in a mental manner, or how Yahusha says, even if you lust in your woman
You've
in your
already,
heart, you've
yeah.
already sinned. So it doesn't even have to be physical, is what brother was talking about. So, but the point is that's usually the context of that story, is that some type of nakedness is being removed, some type of, and the so even with the drunkenness, right? Probably Noah drank a little too much wine, got
Mhm.
drunk, passed out. Maybe his wife, wanted to have some intimacy with him, and possibly Ham was, being a little mischievous son and sneaking in there and maybe did something that would be uncovering his dad's nakedness.
Mhm.
The story doesn't really give the whole
Scenario.
scenario. We only get little,
Yeah.
like, what do they call it? Cliff notes. It's kind of like Genesis, like in that
Mhm.
chapter is giving you cliff notes of the situation. So
Yeah.
you gotta kind of have to look at like what's being said there. So his nakedness is being, and mind you too, the situation with the curse, even
Yeah.
if he's just making fun of his dad saying, ha ha, you're
Yeah.
drunk,
Yeah. It has to be more than
you're
that.
telling me he's gonna curse
No.
his grandson, that's being
The
born,
whole
Canaan,
lineage.
the whole
Yeah.
lineage of Canaan is getting cursed for that little
Mhm.
thing. No,
Yeah.
it's something much deeper than just, oh, he's making his dad drunk, passed out. Because that
Mhm.
that wouldn't even equal the curse that Noah passes down. It would make no logical sense. Go ahead, brother.
I think this also shows you that um, while yes, there were a lot of things in the Torah that were added on because of sin, at least the Ten Commandments, those have always been around. When it says that, um, how does it say it? I forget the first part. I would have to say, like, the only way I have it memorized is when I say them all together, but where it says, uh, I will repay the sins of the fathers unto the children to the third and fourth
Mhm.
generation. That's nothing new. That's always been around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me find the verse. Trying
I
to see.
remember being extremely confused the first
Mhm.
time
Yeah.
I started reading this. So I know where sister's coming from, but a lot of it does have to do with the fact that we are Westerners, as much as we'd like to think we're not. We are Westerners, and we don't know the meanings of all of these phrases, and that's why we have to learn, because we're not going to see it automatically with our eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So that's what I would say my opinion is some type of sexual sin had to have happened.
Mhm.
For the Torah to not contradict itself, you have to have it having the same meaning. So there has to be either, like brother said, a psychological or mental fornication going on
Mhm.
with his mother, or he's doing something
Yeah.
while his dad is asleep. And then his dad realizes something happened, someone just slept with my
Mhm.
wife. And
Mhm.
then just kind of like, and this is not anything new to Israel, by the way.
No, his dad didn't realize anything. The brothers are the ones that told him.
Okay, well, his dad though, what I'm saying is, like, later when his dad wakes up from his stupor, he would have realized something happened, because he goes, not his brothers, he goes to all his sons and singles out Ham, and actually says, your son is now going to inherit this curse. And now Canaan's almost Canaan's whole lineage got cursed. So it's
Yeah.
not even the third and fourth generations, even past that.
Yeah.
It gets to the point where it's like, I forget what it says, Canaan will be a servant of servants. So basically, he's pronouncing a judgment on his son, saying, listen, because of what you did, now your son is going to serve all his brothers.
Mhm.
Now your lineage is now going to be subject to your brothers, and well, specifically Shem. I should correct myself.
Isn't that
Mhm.
the
So
same curse that Dan got of the
yeah, I
time?
was about to talk about that. It's either Dan or Reuben. Reuben did the
Reuben
same
did the
dang
same
thing.
thing. Yep,
Reuben did the
Reuben did.
so this is why I say that this precedent is there in scripture. We have Reuben generations before, or no, I'm sorry, generations after
Yeah,
in Jacob's line.
right.
You have Reuben doing the same thing. And so
Mhm.
I think there was this sexual sin problem that really never fully got
Mhm.
handled in Shem's line, because even though Shem didn't do this one, it seems like
Mhm.
this sexual demon probably went from Ham to Shem, because now you have Shem's descendants doing
Mhm.
the same thing. You have Judah whoring himself, well, not whoring himself out, but marrying strange women.
Yeah.
You got Reuben sleeping with his dad's wife.
Mhm.
So it's like there was something there. There was a sexual demon
Yeah.
there, that was still there after the flood, because a lot of these demons, like we know, don't have their bodies, but
Mhm.
they're now trying to influence or possess mankind. And so Israel actually, from the jump, not in this scenario, but later on from Reuben all the way
Mhm.
down, Israel always had this problem. They've always had this
Mhm.
problem of some type of sexual sin. And they're, whether it's David lusting after another's man's wife, whether it's Reuben doing what he did, whether what did Absalom do? He took his dad's concubines
Mhm.
because he hated his dad so much, so he took David's concubines without his say so. So
Mhm.
you got like constant problem with sexual sin with the
Yeah.
men of Israel from Shem's line. And so this is definitely not something new that we see here. So I believe it makes the most sense with what happens with Ham here, that there had to be on some type of level a sexual sin, whether mental or physical, because it's too big of a curse
Yeah,
to
definitely.
be making fun of someone that's just
Mhm.
drunk. Uh,
But brother, is David's line from Shem?
yeah, Shem fathered all of the Israelites. Shem is the seed in a way, by extension of Abraham.
Mhm.
Shem is the seed of the promise.
Right.
Shem is the righteous line that Messiah comes through. So you have the four sons, Shem, Ham, or sorry, three sons, Shem, Ham, and Yefeth. Yefeth is rumored to be all the light skin or white European nations. So like me and
Mhm.
my mom would be from Japheth, whether we like it or
Mhm.
not. We're from Japheth. Ham is like
Egypt.
Africa,
Yeah.
Egypt. That's Ham. So Shem is the
Mhm.
actual Israelites. So that's how all the descendants we have now of Adam, how they were split up. So you would have
Mhm.
had You would have Hamites, Egyptians, Africans. Japheth would be Greece, Rome, Europe,
Mhm.
all those nations is Japheth. And then you
Right.
have the Israelites come through Shem by Abraham, if that makes any sense. So that's the history of the genealogies you'll see in like Genesis 10, why Genesis 10 says, Japheth fathered this guy, this guy, this guy.
Mhm.
So all those nations eventually became the European nations of Japheth. So like you talk about Madai and Tubal and all that, they're all related to the European nations in some way, shape, or form. So Ashkenaz, the Ashkenazis come from Ashkenaz. They come from Japheth or Gomer. If you want to be more direct, they're from Gomer. So there's like the tables of nations explain a lot. They explain how we all became to be the ethnicities we are today. If you're an islander, you could be mixed. I don't know about like Panama and all that. There could be a mix of Shem and Ham. I don't know how that works because even brother, where did you find that I might have Judean blood in me a little bit? Where it says that when they got dispersed, they might have went into Rome and Greece and all that. Do you remember where you got that from?
That was pulled up through an AI search. I'd have to like actually dig more into it.
Okay. Yeah, so like it gets really tricky nowadays because we're all mixed. So we could all have like even a full 100% heathen might have like tiny little bit of Hebrew blood in them.
Mhm.
They might have tiny little bit of Shem in them. Go ahead, brother. I don't know if that's a new hand or not.
Yeah, it's a new hand. Two things I wanted to point out. One, um, a demon wouldn't have to jump from Ham to Shem just for I forget how you worded it, but if there has never been any sexual sin in my line and I choose to commit sexual sin as we all have a choice, then that immediately opens up my line to a demon for me and future generations.
Mhm.
So even if Ham had never done it, the moment that someone in Shem's line did it, it would open him up. So it
But
doesn't
brother,
necessarily have to
happening
jump.
in line, how did so basically you're saying no one in your family's line had this issue, but then how would you explain? Because the Bible says that the sins of the fathers will go on to the third and fourth generation. So you're mentioning that this happened with you, but no one in your lineage had this issue. So then,
No, I wasn't saying with me. I was using me as a hypothetical, but it doesn't have to have, there doesn't have to be a pre-existing sin for someone to be the first one to commit sin. No one in Adam's lineage committed murder up until Cain. He committed murder and hate in he had hate in his heart towards his brother, and he committed murder, and he was the very first one. There wasn't anyone else in his line that had committed murder before him. So that demon, after he was the very first one to commit it, and after that, you have that demon of murder and hate following him, and you even have people in his lineage committing it. I think Lamech says that I've killed a man, if it be 7 times unto, I forget how it says it, but you see that it follows him. Like, but you also see that he didn't need someone in his lineage before him to commit that for him to commit it. There's always a first time.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, like what he's trying to say is there might have not been any previous generational curses, but the moment someone chooses to open that spiritual doorway, you're going to have generational curses to your descendants. So, that's basically what he's saying. So the moment you choose to do that particular sin, already there's a door opens. It's like instantaneous.
Like Solomon opened the door.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Solomon, I think, probably suffered too, Mom, from David.
Right,
To be
right.
honest.
But the point
Yeah.
being that after that, you see what
Yeah.
happened throughout the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
future in
Yeah.
First and Second Kings. There, it opened up the whole thing.
Yeah, because I think from David's lineage, There was no previous until David did something. And what
Mhm.
happened was David opened the door when he lusted after Bathsheba before they were married. That's where the generational curse would have came in.
Yeah.
And then you see a huge curse it is because Absalom tries to take his concubines. Solomon, when he's born, when he gets older, you start seeing he has a problem with women. He probably was a womanizer or a guy that probably like just was addicted to sex
Right.
because that's the inference you would take from needing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having what's the thing I'm thinking of? There's nothing wrong with having multiple wives. I'm not saying that of itself, but to have that many is like a little unsettling that he felt like he needed 1,000 women. It's a little much.
And from the wrong
So
places too.
from all the wrong places too, from wrong types of women. Not just 1,000 women, but 90% of the women were that Solomon had. It was like 1,000 heathen women he had. So there was definitely demonic doorways open with that. It's not just the fact that it was polygyny, it was the fact that it was a wrong type of polygyny and all of his women were pagan women for the most part. Most part. They were, there's inference about why he was building a house for his first wife, why she needed a separate house from him, what was really going on there. Was he building a house for her to worship her gods? There's like all this inference there because think about it. If I marry a woman, right, and she's equally yoked to me, why the heck do I need to build her a palace? It's a little much. It's a little unless she's doing things that the creator doesn't approve of.
Right. Right.
And he's thinking in his mind, well, maybe if I do this, that the Father will have mercy on her. If I have her worshiping her gods in her own house separate from me. He's kind of like thinking like he probably is rationalizing like outside the camp type of mentality. Like, okay, well, if it's isolated in her home, yada yada. And that's probably what was going on with him. So from the jump, Solomon was being corrupted by women from the jump. And a lot of people like to it's not fair to use an argument against polygamy by using Solomon because he wasn't doing it the right way anyway.
No, it wasn't.
So that's neither here nor there. Whatever your opinion is on multiple wives, that's neither here nor there. His problem was the type of women. If you look at the story in Chronicles or whatever, every single one of them were either Hittite, Hivite, Canaanite, sometimes of Nephilim lineage,
Right.
mind you. So there's even arguments that, Judah was getting somewhat corrupted because of Solomon in the lineage. Go ahead, brother.
Would it be fair to say that even though this is something that Yahuwah has allowed, it is not something that was in his perfect plan, considering that he has one wife?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that polygyny to me in a broader scope was a righteous tool he used to fulfill his promises. He had to fulfill his promise to Israel, and it would have been a lot longer if you're doing it monogamy with everyone.
Yeah,
If
but
you're
Brother Doug, how many men in the Bible do we know of that had as many wives as Solomon? Most of the men in the Bible, like Abraham and Moses, they only had like two or three wives. I don't recall ever reading about any of the patriarchs that had more than two or three wives.
David had about 20.
20, yeah.
Yeah, but
So
compared to Solomon,
yeah.
there was none that had that many
Yeah.
wives.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Like I said, the number two is a little unsettling. Like I did say that the number two is a little unsettling that he needed that many wives. He shouldn't have needed that many. Even if you're talking about you're a healthy man with a righteous sex drive, fine, whatever, you shouldn't need like hundreds or a thousand wives. I do know though, as far as two or three wives, there was actually many Israelites. If you look at the kings, and even some of the righteous kings of Israel had like I think a couple hundred, some of them. So they're definitely, I would say two or three is how it started, but it as Israel became a almost like a not a I don't like to use the word empire, but a big kingdom, the kings would have like, at least a good, 20, 30, sometimes more wives, just for the sake of building a lineage. But yeah, Solomon is, no one ever got close to Solomon's number. I agree with you there. There was something demonic there with him needing that many wives. I think like I said, some men become a womanizer and they are not womanizers. Some men, get addicted to intercourse and they get addicted to, you know, um, they get too high of a sex drive and then there's a problem with that. So who knows? There was something going on there because you don't see anyone else really needing that many women in Israel's history. So there obviously was something going on there. I think with a sexual demon, there was something going on there being passed down. I can only speculate, but the Bathsheba situation, like I said, with David, you pass that along heretically, that type of demon heretically. Eventually, it was going to reach someone. Solomon definitely, I think, had a sexual demon. So there, but yeah, the point I was making was polygyny of itself is not that. And Christians that use that are using that out of context. They're not looking at the context of Solomon's story. They're not looking at what type of women he had. They're not looking at the fact that he pretty much was breaking every rule that Yahuwah set as being a king. You're actually, as a king, you're not supposed to have a vast majority of wives. So that the by Solomon having 1,000 women, he definitely broke that. So he broke that. He broke not multiplying your horses. I think that's in Kings or Chronicles. He was commanded not to greatly multiply his horses, don't so that you don't bring Israel back to Egypt. Because Yahuwah knew that's a temptation. For them to escape his judgment, they would go to Moab, they would go to Egypt. And we see this later on, right? What happens with Book of Jeremiah? What happens? Because of all that Solomon did and his descendants after him, they want to go back to Egypt. And that was actually the ultimatum Yahuwah gave. He's like, either you go to Egypt or die, in the Book of Jeremiah and all that, or you go to Babylon. It's one or the other. And so we see that Yahuwah's concern happened. It happened because Solomon was not following the rules. He was supposed to be basically not greatly multiplying his wives, not greatly multiplying the cattle or the horses, and those two rules he broke almost like right away. So that was part of his problem. So but anyway, but yeah, he definitely had some issues. He had some genetical curses going on and all that. So, but you see that that really plagued Israel a lot.
Oh yeah.
The whoredom spirit plagued them a lot during their time, not just Solomon, but various descendants of Jacob. And I really think you can even track it back to Reuben's sin. And Paul even talks about it. He says to the fellow brothers that were dispersed when he writes his letter, he says, among some of you, you do things that not even the Gentiles do. So basically, he's saying, most of the Gentiles won't even think to sleep with their dad's wife. You're doing it. And so Paul is being very harsh with an assembly. He's saying, why are you guys doing this? So
Jeremiah says that too. Yahuwah says, you're worse than those among the nations.
Yeah.
In your sins.
Yeah. 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 So, but yeah, I think that's what happened with Ham. If I was to really make an educated guess, and that's why Canaan got the curse he got, and spiritual, because almost the majority of his descendants if we go to Genesis 10, right?
Yeah.
We're not there yet, but we'll probably get there. That would probably be one of the last chapters today is 10. Most of his lineage is giants. It's just straight giants. So Yahuwah like cursed him almost genetically in a way.
Brother, I also have another comment regarding what I read. In terms of the rainbow, Yahuwah said that he was not going to allow for another flood, but we've had many tsunamis that have taken place throughout the globe. Well, not the globe, but the four corners of the earth that have killed a lot of people. So, how do we reconcile that?
Well, also remember, right? What was the full context of what you were just quoting from, right? Does he say just a flood or a flood to destroy the earth? So even if we're going to assume that a tsunami is the same thing as a flood, which it's not, even scientifically, they don't consider tsunamis floods. It's still right. What was he promising? He was promising not to destroy the earth again with a flood. So he didn't promise that there wouldn't be floods. A lot of people misunderstand that because they don't. That's why when I always try to help brothers and sisters out, I tell them don't skip a word in a verse. Read every single word when you're reading a verse because if you miss just one word of a verse, the whole meaning changes. So he's saying, I won't bring it as destruction. He never said that there wouldn't be floods or there wouldn't be any type of catastrophes. He never promised that.
Actually, Yahushua
So actually, like when you look at the context of that promise, it was kept. He never destroyed the earth again with a flood, and we're still on this same earth. So what he does promise he'll destroy the earth with when he returns is fire. So actually, even Peter, like what you're bringing up, Peter actually expounds on that and says instead of flood, which who has said he would never, like to your point, he would never bring a flood to destroy the earth again. This time it's going to be with fire. So Peter even gives the context too. So but yeah, that's what happens. Like I understand why you thought it said that. We kind of sometimes we stop at like halfway through a verse, or we'll read like one part of a verse, and then we kind of get the idea he's just talking about a flood in general. But it's actually
It's a long, high sea wave caused by an earthquake.
yeah, that's a little different. That's a little the flood that he sent was waters from, like we were read earlier. It was a flood is like, especially the biblical Noah flood, it was waters being released from the sky. So a earthquake causing a tsunami would be like the where there's a difference too with tsunami is if it's only coming from under the earth, it's not the same thing. So basically in Noah's flood, it was water from the abyss coming up, and then you had the firmament, right? The windows of heaven opened up. So you had water above, water below, going like that in a flood. Now, if that's correct, what Google's saying about tsunami, there's only water underneath coming up. So it would be similar, sis, to like what do they call volcano? Is there a term where a volcano erupts with fire? Lava or whatever.
It's lava.
Yeah,
that's what it does.
Yeah, but similar to that, that's what a tsunami is. Instead of fire, it's water. So it would be like what did they say? Earthquake, that the earthquake causes water to come up. So
a long high sea wave.
yeah.
Long high,
but it caused by
caused by
earthquake.
an earthquake.
So meaning that it's only the waters from the abyss. It would only be the waters from the ocean causing that big type of storm. So that's why we can't really call that a flood. It's similar. I definitely give credit to that. It's a similar thing, similar catastrophe, but it's not the same thing. So the flood, when we look at like Genesis 8 and how it describes it in earlier chapters and from Genesis 6 to 8, it's basically a worldwide sinking of water. And that's another thing too, is that I know some people out there will say that the flood of Noah was local. It wasn't local. We have evidence in nature that the flood was a total submerging of the earth from waters above and waters below, total sinking of the earth. So when you look at it in that aspect, that has never happened since. That is,
Right.
you definitely have had floods though. I'm pretty sure there's been normal
Oh, yeah,
floods
there's been some bad floods. Yeah.
since then, but never to destroy the earth
Mm-hmm.
or never to fully submerge the earth like it did in the days of Noah. So anyway, I hope that kind of helps. Go ahead, brother.
I think something else too. Even though these natural disasters don't equate to the level of what Yahuwah did, and so he still has fulfilled his word. I think something that's important to keep in mind is that a lot of these disasters that are happening today aren't even coming from Yahuwah. He's allowing them, but it's man that's doing them with their DARPA and all these other
Yeah.
stupid things.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, very true. Very true. But yeah, it's always important though, to me, it's always important to read every word in a verse, every single word, because
Mhm.
one word, you take one word out, it changes the meaning.
Right.
It
Right.
completely changes the meaning. So really,
Mhm.
like when I talk to people and people bring that up, he never said he wouldn't send another flood. And
Right.
it's almost like I hate to use the word Mandela effect, but it's almost like we unintentionally at times misremember the context of
Mhm.
verses, and we think it's always said one thing in a verse, and then we go back to it and we're like, to destroy the earth. That gives the whole context. So that's why, by the way, to keep that promise, why he has to send fire on the day of Yahuwah. He can't send water again, so he's got to send fire. It's got to be fire and
Mhm.
brimstone like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
So we see that that's part of him keeping his promise. So he's like, okay, I'm not going to destroy this earth with water again, but on the day of my wrath, I will have to send something.
Mhm.
I will be sending, it will be like a furnace. And that's why Joel talks about it'll be the day of Yahuwah will be like a fiery furnace
Mhm.
and all that. And I think in Malachi is where I'm thinking actually too, where
Mhm.
Malachi talks about that the wicked will be stumble over under our feet.
Mhm.
And this kind of proves to me anyway. Do you remember, Mom, if it's in 2 or 3 where it talks about that?
Malachi? I
Where
think
it
it's
talks
three. I'm
three,
pretty
right?
sure it's three.
So mind you, this is the context of the day of Yahuwah, the day of his return. It talks about Yahuwah whom you seek shall suddenly come to his temple, even Malak of the
Mhm.
covenant, messenger of the covenant, who you delight in.
Yeah.
Behold, he shall come, says Yahuwah of armies. But you may abide who will abide in the day of his coming? When he appears, he is like a refiner fire and like fuller's soap. Oh, that's a weird word.
I know. I've always thought that's a little
King James is
strange.
a little weird in that verse.
We need to look into some
He
kind of
shall
concordance to see what that
he
really
shall
means.
sit as a refiner, and a purifier of silver. He shall purify the sons of
Mhm.
Levi and purge them as gold and silver, and that they may offer to Yahuwah. So we see this. It basically this is talking about the day of Yahuwah being like he's going to be a refiner of fire. And to the wicked, they will become stubble. Let me just look at that verse. It might be chapter 2, honestly. The wicked will be stubble under your feet.
Mhm.
And that's referring to like burning of like wheat and stuff. Stubble will be stubble. Go ahead, brother, while I look this up.
Old hand.
Okay, under your
Mm.
feet. No, no. Okay. Oh, wow, it's 4. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't remember this as part of the last chapter. Okay, so this is right
Mhm.
before he's talking about remember the law of Moses.
Oh.
Okay, so this is Malachi 4:3. Then you will trample on the wicked, they will be ashes under the soles of your feet. And this is why I believe we're part of the messenger army when this happens, because he's talking to Israel here through Malachi. He's saying, you guys, they will be ashes under the soles of your feet. So a lot of times in extra biblical texts like Enoch, it will talk
Mhm.
about like that the bodies of light, the messengers, that sometimes they have an appearance of fire. And I think even Enoch talks about it. It talks about like the
Mhm.
this is why I think we're going to be part of that angelic or messenger army, because for them to be ashes under our feet, literal ashes under our feet, we're burning something up too. So in the resurrection, we become part of that army. And then we come straight down to exact his wrath on the wicked. So like almost simultaneously, when the arpazo, the catching away happens, we're being turned and get turned into righteous, going from corruptible bodies into righteous bodies almost simultaneously. Those that will be in the first resurrection. And those that are in the first resurrection will be part of that Malachim army that's coming down and burning the wicked under their feet. So these are one of the verses that I use to show why I believe that we're not going to be up there in heaven at the Erpatzo. We are getting transformed into messenger like heavenly beings to be with Yahuwah on the day of his wrath, to exact his wrath with him on the wicked. So that's what's going on there. So the catching away, actually, you're not going up to heaven in the catching away. So that's why a lot of people get confused about the rapture. They think the rapture means you're getting raptured to heaven. It doesn't say that. It says the clouds. Clouds are not heaven. Clouds are the sky, the atmosphere. So and I don't like using the word atmosphere because it has fear in it, but whatever. It's talking about the sky. You're meeting up in the sky with Yahusha, righteously being caught up. And once we're all caught up with him, then we're coming down to exact his judgment on the world. So you see that in Jude. Jude talks about it. He says he will come with all of his saints. He uses the word saints there again, which Revelations 14:12, endurance of the set apart ones, the saints, keeping the commandments. So literally us and the Malachim in heaven are both called set apart ones, Kadashim, in scripture for a reason. So there's a connection there. So anyway, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But just to say, this is why one of the verses that I believe points to what we will become. We will be like he is. I mean, that's not an allegory, saying that we will be like he is. And if Yahuwah is light, Yahusha is light, and in him there's no darkness, that doesn't only have to be metaphorical, it means literal, that he is literally light. He's literally, the Almighty is light. So for us to be like him physically, we have to be what he is, which is, a heavenly being. I'm not saying he's an angel. What I'm saying is that the angels are made in his image. So like I was talking, I think, with my mom and Sister Marissa a little while back. So there is no verse in the Bible that says that we're the only ones made in his image. There's nowhere it says that. So that's the misconception we have, is that only humans he made after his likeness. That nowhere in the Bible does it actually literally say that. It just says that we were made in his image. Especially us men. Men were made in his image. But what you got to understand too is Adam was also in the category, he's even called the son of Elohim. And you see later on in Genesis 6, what are sons of Elohim? They're messengers. So again, there's a connection there. So I'm just saying that's something I've been studying a lot into in the past, is why are we and the messengers both called Kadashim? Why is Yahuwah categorizing us in the same category? Why is he always connecting his heavenly counsel with us in places, even in their oral traditions? The Deuteronomy 32, I think in one of the Targums, it mentions that at that time, when the nations were being divided after the flood at the Tower of Babel, he separated the nations, the number of nations among the numbers of messengers. And then it even says in that Targum, it kind of gives some commentary, says that just like the 70 souls of Israel that went down into Egypt. So even the rabbis, and we can say what we want, we can say what we say about, Jewish rabbis or whatever, but even the rabbis had this concept in their oral tradition that there's something between Israel and the heavenly council, that maybe possibly Yahuwah is going to replace those of that heavenly council that fell with us, with the 144,000, we will be part of possibly that's what the 24 elders is about. Possibly. Just a theory. I can't prove it, but it could be a theory of why there's a connection between the 144,000 and the Malachim in heaven. But anyway. But yeah, so I think we could try chapter 10, right? I think, Mom, you haven't read yet.
Nope.
Just seeing it. Yeah. I think that will be it for today because we got about barely an hour until sunset. Okay. All right. So chapter 10
Crazy, y'all only
Genesis.
have an hour. Like, it's only 1:20 over here.
Wow. Yeah, we're ahead of everyone, man. The North,
Yeah.
we're ahead of everyone.
Okay, Table of Nations. This is the account of Shem.
My bad. I muted this by mistake. I'm so used to doing that.
Okay, you want me to reread that?
Yeah, just reread that.
All right. This is the account of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah's sons, who themselves had sons after the flood. The Japhethites, the sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yavan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Rephath, and Togarmah. The sons of Yavan, Elisha, Tarshish, the Kittites, and the Rodanites. From these, the maritime people spread us in a parentheses anyway. Okay, moving on to verse 6. The sons of Ham, Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Raamah, and Sabteka. The sons of Raamah, Sheba, and Dedan. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who became a mightier warrior on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yahuwah. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before Yahuwah. The first centers of his kingdom were Babylon, Uruk, Akkad, and Calneh in Shinar. From that land, he went to Assyria, where he built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Ir, Kala, and Resen, which is between Nineveh and Kala, which is the great city. Egypt was the father of the Ludites, Anamites, Lahabites, Naphtuhites, Pathrusites, Kozlahites, from whom the Philistines came, and Caphtorites. Canaan was the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and of the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Arkites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zemarites, and Hamathites. Later, the Canaanite clans scattered, and the borders of Canaan reached from Sidon toward Gerar as far as Gaza, and then toward Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham by their clans and languages in their territories and nations. The Semites' sons were also born to Shem, whose older brother was Japheth. Shem was the ancestor of all the sons of Eber, the sons of Shem, Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram, Uz, Hul, Gether, and Meshech. Arphaxad was the father of Shelah, and Shelah the father of Eber. 2 sons were born to Eber. One was named Peleg, because in his time the earth was divided. His brother was named Yoktan. Yoktan was the father of Almadad, Shaleth, Hazarmaveth, Yera, Hadaram, Utsal, Dikla, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Yobab. All these were sons of Yoktan. The region where they lived stretched from Mesha towards Sephar in the eastern hill country. These are the sons of Shem by their clans and languages in their territories and nations. These are the clans of Noah's sons according to their lines of descent within their nations. From these, the nations spread out over the earth after the flood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it gets kind of confusing in the last verse here in the Greek. When it's saying Gentiles here, it's not referring to like, it's not trying to say that Shem would be a Gentile. It's in the Greek, I think they don't have a differencing of between the word for nations from Hebrew to Greek and Gentiles. So it would just mean the same thing. So they're not saying that like the descendants of Shem are Gentiles. So I know
Did I
because
say that?
no, I'm just saying
Okay.
that people have
Inferred that?
I've gotten questions one-on-one with people before about that.
Okay.
And basically the Greek doesn't differentiate. It doesn't have a different word
Mhm.
for just regular, a nation of people. Like they just call it all Gentiles. Because to them, that's the whole world. The whole world is Gentiles. So they're
Mhm.
in their point of view, there's, they don't, they're obviously the Greek is a heathen language, so it's not gonna have a lot of Hebrew culture in it. So
Mhm.
it's not gonna understand the difference between the Gentiles and the nation of Israel, or
Mhm.
Israel as a nation of people. So, and this is before, by the way, before we even have Israel. So, by the way, this is just it's in context of just saying that all the nations of the earth, every country of the earth, was scattered after the flood. So they basically it's talking about all these nations after the Tower of Babel scattered. And you can see that in Deuteronomy 32 as well. This is a good. I always use this cross reference here to help people understand what's going on there. So Deuteronomy 32 verse 8 in the Septuagint says, "When the Most High divided the nations, when he separated the sons of Adam, okay, descendants of Adam, he set boundaries, meaning countries, boundary lines of the nations according to the number of the messengers of Eluah or Elohim." So this is talking about the council,
Mhm.
the 70 Malachim, that each one of the 70 he put over the 70 or 69 nations, however you want to look at it, because Israel would have been one of the 70. So some people want to say 69 heathen nations, whatever. Point is that he instituted each Malach for one of those nations. So principalities. So this is where we get the principality concept. Now, obviously, we know in Psalms 82, people that are very familiar with Psalms 82, that's when everything kind of goes crazy because kind of goes down to the toilet with this, with what Yahuwah's plan was for this. Yahuwah knew they were going to rebel, but his plan was for them to act righteously and to take care of the nations. You go fast forward to Psalms 82. Yahuwah's like, you haven't judged for the orphan, poor, low, and needy. A lot of times we read this and we try to apply it to ourselves, which I can understand the temptation to do that we think Yahuwah's talking to us, but he's really talking to this heavenly council that rebelled, that historically many cultures have this concept in their own pagan religions that the gods, okay,
Yeah.
these messengers that wanted to be worshipped rather than serving the supreme loving creator Yahuwah Yahusha, they wanted to be worshipped, just like Satan. So these guys basically kind of did something similar to Satan. They rebelled and said, "No, we're not gonna be your little guardians over the nations. We want the nations to serve us."
Mhm.
And then you see what happens here. It says they don't know darkness. They don't know, they do not understand, nor know. They walk on in darkness, all the foundations of the earth. Psalms 82, verse 5 there. I have said you are mighty ones.
Mhm.
You are all children of the Most High. So this is my point too, that goes back to for Adam to be called a son of Yahuwah when he was first created. It's very possible Yahuwah's original plan was for Adam and Kua to be up there with the messengers. and obviously they lived in the earth too, but to have a responsibility at the heavenly mountain, the heavenly Zion, and to be at least Adam, at least to be part of that council. And because you see 80-90% of the time when it says B'nai Elohim or B'nai Yahuwah, it's referring to direct genetical children of the Most High, meaning that that's what Adam and Kua were meant to be. So anyway, but you see like the problem here is these guys that were sons of Elohim, supposed to be judging over the nations and taking care of the people, they rebel, and then Yahuwah's like, you're my sons. I procreated you genetically, but now you're going to die like men. Now you're going to die like mankind because you've acted this way. And so this is like kind of the same judgment he gives to Satan. It's a similar judgment in Isaiah 14. He says, you know what? They're going to be like, is this the Cain? Is this the Cain that made the nation shake? They're gonna scoff at the devil at his fall when he finally gets destroyed. So you see the same thing at that, and then it talks about here, arise, O Elua, you will judge the earth, for you shall inherit all nations. So basically, these fallen members of the heavenly council in Psalms 82 were the same. It seems like they were the same 70 messengers Yahuwah put over the nations at the Tower of Babel. And they eventually, between Deuteronomy and Psalms, in those two time periods, somewhere in between, they rebel, and now they were trying to stop Yahuwah from inheriting the nations. And you see certain versions, like I think it's the Jubilee Bible in Isaiah 14. It talks about Satan wanted to take the Gentiles as his inheritance. So basically, he wanted to set himself above Yahuwah. And it talks about that. Let me see if I can find it real quick in this Jubilee Bible here. So I really like the Jubilee Bible because it's kind of a mixture. The translators actually took the Latin Vulgate and the manuscripts that the King James used, and it's kind of like a mixture. So sometimes they'll paraphrase and use the Vulgate, so it's kind of interesting. So it says here that this is like a real interesting reading of Isaiah 14:12 here. It says, how are you fallen from heaven, O Hallel, son of the morning? Aren't you cut down? How have you been cut down to the ground, who did claim the Gentiles as an inheritance? So it's talking about claiming all the Gentiles as his inheritance, which he doesn't have the right to claim. He's not the creator. So basically, Satan's trying to, the old saying, you give them an inch, they take a yard type of thing. Like he's trying to be Yahuwah.
So why is he called Son of the Morning? I mean,
I think that's like an allegorical phrasing. It's like a title. It's because he's, morning stars, messengers, son of the morning. It could be referring to that he's the son of Yahusha, because Yahusha's the creator, he's Yahuwah. So Yahusha's the bright morning star. Could be like an allegorical title given to him. That before he fell, he was this bright star. What's interesting to note is the Targums actually paraphrase Hallel here as Venus, which I find funny because Venus is like associated with Jupiter and all. So I find that kind of funny. So they're trying to hint around that this could also be talking to Baal or, and all that. Go ahead, brother.
I could see it being allegorical in the sense that, right, he's called Son of the Morning. Other variations would say Venus, right, or morning star, meaning the brightest star in the sky before the sun actually arises. And we know that Yahusha is the light. Yahuwah is the brightest thing that exists, period. So if Yahusha can be equated to the breaking forth of daylight or the dawning, right, then you could see it equating Yahusha to the son of the morning, especially if you take into consideration other verses. I think there's the verse that comes to mind is where it says that in the garden, all all the other trees envied him. He was the most beautiful tree in the garden. So in a way, like I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm not sure I'm wording this correctly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, this is the verse I was referring to where he's calling himself the bright morning star, Yahusha here. So basically, son of the morning could just, even in a physical sense, just refer to that he's the son of the Most High, or he's a son of the Most High. So there's many morning stars. There's I forget if it's Job where the messengers are paraphrased as morning stars. So Yahusha's the bright morning star, meaning he
Yeah.
is the head, not that he's a messenger, but that he is, like you said, the source of all light, the light of the world. So basically, I would say I would agree with you 100%. It's an allegorical title. So basically, son of the morning would be like saying, son of mine, son of mine, what are you doing? Like, kind of, it's kind of like you who is rebuking one of his bastard children. And he's saying, son of the morning, you've done this, you've done that, you've thought in your heart to uplift yourself and all that. So son of the morning, yeah, I think it's just a generic title that he's son of the light, the true light being Yahusha. Yahusha's the true light, Halel, um, wanted to be, or Godriel, if you prefer to call him, because that's what Enoch gives as his original name. Gadriel got uplifted in his heart, and he wanted to be the light of the world. Even though he's a son of the light of the world, he wanted to be in that position. He wasn't content with being a servant. He wasn't content with, being one of the, messengers in heaven and all of that. So basically, it's like the father here speaking through Isaiah and saying, listen, son of mine, look how weak you've become. Look what you've become, basically. You're now cut to the ground. You tried to claim my creation as your inheritance. And so it even talks about further on, if you read the whole chapter, you said in your heart you will ascend to the stars of Alua. And this is a perfect example of how we know what stars are, right? Okay, so we'll ascend into heaven upon next to the stars. So these messengers, these stars up in heaven, he wanted to ascend into the congregation. Some of the Targums will say, ascend into the congregation of the stars, of the messengers. I will exalt my throne and sit upon the mountain of witness and in the sides of the north. So basically, this is he's given us a backdrop to the moment of Satan rebelling. And he's like, this is what you've done. You said in your heart, I know your heart. You said it in your heart that you want to do these things. And basically, who is judging him, saying, you're going to be cast forth into Sheol, into Hades. Everyone's going to see your carcass. They're going to see your dead body and wonder, is this the man that made nations shake? And that goes into a whole nother topic about, what happens to a messenger when they fall? Do they become a man? Is that almost like a curse to them, that they lose their status as a Moloch and they become a man? Because he's being called a man here. It says, is this the man that made the kingdom shake? Is this, and basically he becomes a byword. Yahuwah is saying you're going to become a byword. No one's going to respect you anymore. Go ahead, brother.
Well,
Okay. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense there. So basically, this is where we get the famous, go ahead.
so Satan has already fallen, but he's not a man yet. So that leaves me confused.
Yeah. I wonder if, yeah, that's a good 2 point. I wonder if,
Can he represent himself in any way that?
well, no, what we're talking about, Mom, is a curse where he
Oh,
can't,
all right.
he can't go back.
Oh, I got you.
Because the
Okay.
text is saying, is this the man that made king? So it's identifying him as a literal man. So yeah, so brother is just trying to say is like when would that actually happen? I think he's saying.
Mhm.
It could happen at any. You know what? Hold on a second. Let me read further on here. Hold on a second, because it says, "You shall be numbered with them in Baroka, yada yada yada. Prepare slaughter for his sons." I personally believe this is literal. I think he will do what the Watchers did. Prepare slaughter for his sons, for the lawlessness of their fathers. The Septuagint has its singular here, father, that they do not rise nor possess the land nor fill the face of the world with cities. I believe Satan at some point in the end times, he's going to take on flesh. He's
Mhm.
going to become a man for multiple reasons. I think this is going to happen because this verse is hinting that he has physical children. And the only way to have that in an earthly realm with humans, he would need to become like a man and sleep with a woman, like what the Watchers did. I believe that's why he's chained for 1,000 years after
Mhm.
that. I mean, there's all little hints that something's going to happen. In some of this is not being fulfilled yet, like you're hinting at. I don't think we've seen that yet. Him becoming a man. I think that's going to later on happen when possibly he'll get cursed, and we don't even know. The Watchers might be cursed this way too. That are in Tartarus right now. We have no idea. They might be cursed in the bodies they took that they can't because as far as I know, when Enoch Ray is talking about they take any form they want, if I'm not mistaken, that's before they fall.
Mm.
So we don't know if this could be part of the curse that they would have to remain men. They can't. So possibly that's why he's being called a man here. Either that or another explanation would be that it's going back and forth between Nimrod and Satan, and that maybe there's like kind of like Ezekiel, where you have it talking about the Assyrian, I think in Ezekiel 29 or
Mhm.
32, right? And then it goes to the devil, and then goes back to the Assyrian, and then back to the devil. It's like they're Yahuwah is like pronouncing judgment, both of them, but it's like they're one person.
Mhm.
So, and that goes to another side topic. Is the devil going to literally become the beast? It's another way that he would be a man, right? If he, became the beast, if he became the anti-Messiah and embodied the anti-Messiah, he would technically be a man. So there's many ways this could possibly happen theoretically. I think either one of those ways it's going to happen because, like I said, Isaiah 14:21 is talking about prepare his children for the slaughter, um, prepare the slaughter of his children or his sons for iniquity of their father, because in the Septuagint it's singular, so it's talking about their father, which is the devil in context. That they arise not inherit the earth, no fill the earth with their wars. So yes, this could be talking spiritual, could be talking about the elite. I get that, but I think it's more on a physical side. Go ahead, brother.
So when you compare, we know that Satan was among those that came down, and yet it doesn't seem like he was one that actually slept with the women. And when
Mm-mm.
you compare them, right, they took on flesh. When you compare them to Satan, and you compare these messengers to demons, right? Demons we know can possess people. It also seems like Satan can enter people and possess them without actually having to take on his own flesh, because we know that he entered into Judas. So I'm wondering if different levels of messengers have different capabilities and different things that they can do, because it seems that Satan can move inside flesh without actually having flesh of his own by possessing people, which is usually we only see demons possessing people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And honestly, we don't even know, we're not even too sure, right, that messengers can't do that. We just, like you said, we don't see it. So it's like, it's all this is hypothetical at this point because we don't know all the abilities. Enoch doesn't tell you all the abilities. What Enoch does say is that they can transform, they can take any form they want. Yeah, so I would agree you. There's always a possibility he could possess Nimrod, I'm more of the opinion that he'll become the beast. He'll he'll try because he loves to be a mimicker in his character. He loves to be someone that would want to copycat Yahusha. So, Yahuwah in the flesh, he would want to be, beast incarnate, which I kind of find funny because I remembered years ago, like the WWE using that phrase, and I always thought it was weird. I don't know if you guys know about Brock Lesnar, right? The MMA guy, wrestler Brock Lesnar. He was called the Beast Incarnate. And I always thought it was weird. I was like, are they trying to program us? It's very weird. That phrase beast incarnate literally means like he's the beast in flesh. That's what the phrase would mean. Like the term incarnate means that's the belief system in Christianity that Yahuwah took on flesh, right? Incarnate. So to call someone the beast incarnate, that I don't know. I just found that interesting. I found that interesting that even in modern media, they're trying to promote this idea. So I don't know. I think it's possible. And I think some people, some of the authors of pseudepigraphal writings even hint at it, that the dragon was going to literally become the beast and literally become one with Baal, with Nimrod, like this idea of a counterfeit oneness, you could say. And so that's kind of my personal belief. I could be wrong, but I just see even modern culture hinting at it. Even, and usually when they do this, it's predictive programming. They're trying to make you feel comfortable with it. But I always thought that was weird, the nickname they gave him. I always thought that was weird. I was like, this is like a wrestler. Why are they calling him the Beast Incarnate? I always thought that was weird. But yeah, literally that name would literally mean that. It would mean, the beast in human form. Like, so that to me is like kind of hinting at that, that's something that could be a possibility about the anti-Messiah is that he'll literally try to make a satanic counterfeit of what Yahusha was. And, when he comes, the dragon will be in the beast. And he will, whether it's like you said, possession or whatever have it, they will be one entity trying to claim to be Yahuwah. There'll be one entity in that third temple trying to get worshipped. And so we kind of see that in modern culture and all that. So I just find that interesting. But oh, go ahead, brother. I don't know if that's a new or old hand.
Old hand. They need to make a feature that it, like the moment that you unmute to talk, it automatically lowers your hand.
Yeah, it's annoying for either one of us to have to keep pressing lower hand every time. It's like really weird. Okay, so the only thing I wanted to bring about before we got off today that I thought was important for people to know, because I've seen this false belief system a lot with Nimrod, and mainly due to Jasher, mainly is really the only source material people can get or proof that he was somehow good at some point and that he originally served Yahuwah. There is no scripture for that whatsoever. And even when you look at the word before, in the Greek, it's not supposed to be before. So I want to let people know that's a mistranslation real quick, just to show people. In Genesis 10, verse 9, we go back here, right? Right where the word before here, and especially if you look in the Thayer's lexicon, unabridged Thayer's that eSword has. Okay, so you got this is the word here, G172 enantion, okay, enantion. Number one definition, over, against, opposite, contrary. So if you're contrary to something, you're not serving before them in obedience. If you're contrary, you're against. So in my opinion, if you're talking about the Septuagint, every English version of the Septuagint mistranslated this verse. Every version, whether it's the Bretons, doesn't matter. They all screwed up because the Greek doesn't say before. So it should have said, he was a giant hunter before Yahuwah. Therefore, they say, as Nimrod, the giant hunter against Or maybe both should say against. So it should say he was a giant hunter against Yahuwah Elohim, Yahuwah Elua. Therefore, they say as Nimrod, the giant hunter against Yahuwah. I believe the Masoretic changed this word to before in the Hebrew later on when the Masoretic came out because they already had Jasher. Jasher would have came about, or some type of Talmud would have existed at some point where it said, well, he used to serve Yahuwah and then he betrayed him, whatever. That's whole oral tradition would have been already circulating by the time you get to the 9th century AD. By the time you get to 900 AD, you already have Mishnahs, Zohar and Talmud already created, if I'm not mistaken, right? Didn't we look it up before, Mom? The Zohar was written like in the 5th century.
I think so.
So you already have that stuff existing. So when people say to me, "Well, the Hebrew says before," I get that. But the Hebrew we have today, the Hebrew text we have today, is so far removed from the original. For these type of things, I have to discount the Masoretic. I have to. It would have been created to cater to rabbinical thought, that text. So if it's being catered to rabbinical thought, then it's not valid because then they have a bias. So then I have to go to older texts like the Septuagint, like the Targums. Even some of the Targums say that he was a rebel, a mighty rebel against Yahuwah. So again, it's against, not before. So when you actually look into the Greek sometimes, the English is going to be screwed up sometimes, guys, because they have biases. Translators have biases. It's just the way it goes. So don't automatically trust your English translation. Always go to whether it's a Strong's, Thayer's, Brown's, Driver, Briggs dictionary. I don't care what it is. Always use a concordance when you're studying because you're going to find out no translator is perfect. They're not gonna be perfectly honest with the whole text in every verse, in every chapter, in every book. There's going to be instances where they translate it, either mistranslate it by accident or on purpose. And there's many times where it happens. So that's just something I wanted to kind of just briefly talk about because there's been a lot of stuff in a lot of ministries out there want to say there's no hint in the Bible that Nimrod rebelled and all this stuff, and it's ridiculous. They even tried to say that supposedly that there's no way he could have been involved in the Tower of Babel. And to me, that's kind of like you're kind of like using a strong man argument just because it doesn't verbatimly say, "Oh, he didn't build the tower or was involved," because it's not there. Okay, the fact of the matter is, it's talking about Nimrod right before they're building the tower, and it's talking about him being against Yahuwah. The tower is against Yahuwah. It's just, it's kind of like the 1+1 = 2 scenario. Okay. Like you don't need it literally to say it. It's basic inference. Okay. He's a rebel. His name means we shall rebel. Literally, Nimrod in the Hebrew means we shall rebel. So again, it's kind of like it doesn't need to say it. Yahuwah doesn't need to spell out everything. It's okay to use common sense and inference. Okay, but anyway, so I just wanted to end it with that. Man, woof. Go ahead, brother.
One last thing. Going back to Genesis 9:27, where it says Yahweh shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. I enlarge the tents of Shem, while that is very accurate as to what is going on today, with the people who aren't the people being in the land. It's interesting that another wording, when you go to the Strong's for H6601, it can mean to make spacious, to enlarge, right? But it can also mean to entice, deceive, or persuade. And when you consider that a lot of the people in the land, I mean, a lot of them now are coming to the truth that they aren't the people, but a lot of them for a long time really believed that they were the people. And so they were deceived. So it's interesting that both enlarge or deceive um, fit that prophecy.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of prophecies about them being over there and not being Israel, trampling of the Gentiles. We all heard of that in Daniel. I mean, there's tons of verses that actually show that what we see with Zionism today, actually in a negative way, reflects Scripture rather than this fantasy, like you were saying, that they're the people. There's no Scripture that would promote that whatsoever. They're if they're from Ashkenaz, they're not the people genetically. They're not. They can't be. That's just a fact. That's not anti-Semitism. You got to be first of all, you have to be a Semite for you to accuse me of anti-Semitism. I would have to be somehow racist against a Shemite, which again, I'm not being racist at all. I'm just speaking the truth that what they've been told they are is not what they are. They're Japhethites, they're not Shemites. So they're and number two, it would have to be against someone that's a Shemite. That's literally the definition of anti-Semitism. So really, anti-Semitism would be like me hating a real natural branch of Israel for no reason. That's anti-Semitism. So that would be like me, um, and trust me, I've been tempted with it with all this, racist black Hebrew Israelite nonsense, but like just to give a context, it would be like me sinfully hating them and having hatred towards them in my heart. That is what Paul warns against in Romans 11. That's what anti-Semitism is. It would have to be someone that we know for a fact is a Shemite ethnically, and me hating on them, like hating them in my heart for no reason. That's literally what anti-Semitism is. So I know a lot of people, you know, they want to call everything anti-Semitism under the sun. And the fact of the matter is, we're not being racist. We're just calling a spade a spade. Okay, we're just explaining that what they've been taught they are is not what they are. They are Gentile. They are Gentile heathen that are not in covenant, living in a land that was never given to them. That's the reality. That's the reality. And some people will say, well, Yahuwah caused that to happen. Well, actually, what happened is Yahuwah allowed it to happen. It wasn't, it might have been his overall will for prophecy, yes, but he allowed the Zionists to do that. The Zionists themselves physically put their hands to take Palestine. Yahuwah did not do that. So again, they're even some orthodoxy guys out there understand that are in the land. They protest it. Okay. So I'm not saying anything that they don't already know. The Orthodox, like the strict Orthodox Jewish people out there that are anti-Zionist, they got picket signs talking about we should not be here. And they got like, with the circle with the line through it on on the Zionist flag. Understand, this is something that's in the land right now happening, is that you have an anti-Zionist movement telling people that we're not supposed to be here. Go ahead, brother. I don't know if that was a new or old hand. But anyway, yep, go ahead.
No, old hand.
Oh, you're muted, bro.
Oh, old hand.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. I think we're gonna stop the recording. We're just about out of time for today over by our side of the world. Hopefully you guys got something out of today. Hopefully it was very edifying that you guys got a decent amount of expounding here, and Yahuwah led this study today to really show you guys some things you might have not thought of before. And Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Have a great rest of Yahuwah Yahusha's Shabbat. And Yahuwah Almighty, Yahushua Messiah, so be it. All right.